So, hello, Dave. Thanks so much for joining us here at Dairy Global today. Just to introduce you to our audience, today we are talking to Dave Armstrong, who is the Global Director, Commercial and Medical Lead of Livestock Diagnostics and Global Commercial Development at Zoetis. Welcome, Dave.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I would just like to go through a few questions that looks at cow health, like mastitis on farm, what farmers can do in terms of management and prevention and a prevention plan, and also what this means for aspects like management, the bottom line, and a well-producing dairy herd, of course. So, Dave, with mastitis costing the global dairy industry billions annually, efficient management is, of course, more critical than ever. Can you comment on this in terms of how far the industry has come over the years?
So yeah, I think the industry has made massive improvements over the years. When we talk about billions of dollars, euros, pounds, whatever it be, it's such a vast sum of money for people to think about. But I think if you look back to when we originally started with the 5-point plan. And looking at how we controlled mastitis that way, all the way up through, genetic improvement of cattle and resilience to disease, we've made massive strides. And I think the general understanding of mastitis and the multifactorial background to the disease has improved massively, which has then led to, us being able to treat and prevent much better than, we have done previously. We've still obviously got a long way to go when you talk about, the amount of money that, that we are potentially leaving on the table with the disease. But I think, the improvements have been there, and I think they'll keep coming because it's an area of focus for veterinarians and for producers alike globally.
It does cost a lot, so the focus needs to be there. But it's really great to hear that the strides have been made. Also, just want to move to the UK, where other strides have been made in the use of antibiotics in ruminants. The UK is a lone responsible user of antibiotics. What do you think has impacted this progress?
So I think it's twofold. I think generally, there's a great awareness of the need to reduce antimicrobials in the veterinary profession and in producers alike. And I think, at the end of the day, we're wanting to produce a good, healthy product for people to consume. And so if we can make sure that the animals are healthy, they're producing high quality milk, then we're going to reduce that antimicrobial levels. And I think the positive message that's been given about we can reduce antimicrobial usage and still have a high quality product. And what that means to the consumer at the end of the day, is just that positive reinforcement. And, it's always difficult to take those first steps to reducing, therapies that we've relied on for many years. But once producers start to understand that, I can do this and I can do this slightly differently, and, I have higher value for what I'm doing and I feel better about the product that I'm producing, then that adds value all through the chain.
Yeah, in terms of products, Zoetis has recently launched Vetscan Mastigram, which is a rapid and first on-farm mastitis diagnostic that gives farmers and vets the information they need in just 8 hours. Firstly, why is 8 hours so important with this diagnostic?
Yeah, so it was designed with the producer in mind. So as we know, most farms are either on twice a day or 3 times a day milking. So the idea would be that if we see a cow with mastitis at one milking, by the next milking, we can have a indication of what's causing that mastitis, which means that we can target our therapy and also treat early, because we also know that early treatment tends to be a more successful treatment. Less repeat cases, less chronic mastitis, which adds into the figure that you gave earlier from a cost perspective. So that 8 hours is that window between the two milkings. So it's been very much designed with the customer in mind.
You've also, I've heard in the industry that it is quite a game changer. Can you comment on that?
So I think the simplicity of the test really helps because for me, being able to just take one mill of milk and then 8 hours later have a result that is just on a simple lateral flow test. We're all very used to using lateral flows over what's happened over the past few years with coronavirus. So I think there's an area of comfort in interpreting that for producers and for veterinarians alike. And the fact that in that period, we can give an answer that is, does this animal require antimicrobials? Yes or no? I think that is incredibly helpful. So I think the game-changing piece is that producers are not having to wait for a result, because if we send milk samples away to a laboratory, it's going to take time to get that result. And then, unfortunately, most producers would treat because the risk of waiting is potentially too long. But if by the next time we see that cow, we know whether we're doing the right thing or not, from a responsible usage perspective, that's fantastic. And from a production perspective, that $1 billion that we talked about at the start, that is a lot of that is from waste milk and milk that's under antimicrobial restrictions. So if we don't have to treat an animal, we're going to save a lot of money, or actually, sell a lot more milk, which is profit at the end of the day.
So Vetscan Mastigram is also making its mark as part of a One Health approach. I think you kind of talked around that now. How is it so, and why is it so important in today's sector?
So we obviously talked about the need to reduce antimicrobials, and mastitis is one of the disease areas where we do need to use antimicrobials. Animals are still going to get mastitis, even with the improvements we've made in hygiene, in milking routine, in genetics. So we do need to treat, but we need to treat the animals that do definitely need therapy. And so with Mastigram, it's giving us an indication very quickly of which animals do need therapy, which also means we can target our therapy, because if we know it's a gram-positive bacteria, we can select our antimicrobials to target gram-positives instead of being a broad-spectrum antimicrobial, which potentially, adds to the One Health repercussions that we have discussed.
Yeah. So we talked about antibiotics. It is a big issue in the livestock industry, as we talked about. Progress has been made, for example, in the UK. But what do you think? We are moving fast enough? Are we for necessary changes to happen and to take place in the livestock sector?
I think we are making really big strides, and I think everybody is pulling in the same direction. And I think as I mentioned before, it's like for the whole supply chain, it's really important to produce a high quality product, and so yes, we're always going to need to treat those animals that have a bacterial infection that require it. But if we can, as I say, make sure that we're treating the right animals with the right product, we're definitely pulling in the right direction. And I can only see this area getting more traction and people being more proactive about what they do. Because at the end of the day, all the producers out there, all the veterinarians are very keen to make sure that we've got a healthy product going into the supermarket.
So maybe a critical question, Dave. Where do you see improvements? Where do they need to be made? Where do you see we can kind of take better strides and perform better in terms of antibiotics? I mean, do you think legislation, policymakers?
So I think there's again a multifaceted approach. I think there's always going to be a need for guidance and support. Yeah. So whether that is via legislation or whether it's via producer groups themselves driving that, I don't think that bit matters, because as I say, I think everyone is keen to make sure that they do this, and I think some of the legislation that's already there is powerful enough to drive this. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest drive will be the consumer. So, and what the consumer actually
it's changing,
wants.
Isn't it, rapidly?
Of course, and we've seen a big change in information that's out there. Certainly, with social media and the internet over the past decade, so people are becoming much more aware of these things, and I think that is what will drive a lot of change. I think to me, we are very much moving in the right direction. Obviously, we can always do more to prevent, and to obviously, treat the right animals. And, as long as we are treating the right animals early, then we're going to actually use less antimicrobials, because we're going to have less animals that are sick for longer. So that targeted therapy at the right time is absolutely key to driving this.
Really important. So thank you, Dave. A final question to you. What is next for Zoetis? Can you reveal anything that's exciting and that we can see in the future, that we will see in the future?
So Zoetis is incredibly committed to livestock and to responsible use, and to driving towards a One Health approach. There will be things that will obviously continue to drive the responsible use, and also to really support the producers in what they're doing, and the veterinarians from a consultancy perspective as well, because we know that all goes hand in hand. But we continue to invest and to innovate in this area. And yes, watch this space, I would say.
Sure, we will watch that space. Thank you so much, Dave. So thank you for being here today. It was great to have your insights, and I look forward to hearing more about what Zoetis is doing in the livestock sector in the future.
Thanks, Anna. Thank you for having me.